Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're on the website of Ingles Hayday Auctioneers based in the UK, and we're going to have a look at their latest auction, which is the Rosenberg collection part 2. So of those of you that have been watching this channel for a while will know that sadly last year the expert and collector Norman Rosenberg passed away, and Ingles and Hayday were tasked with selling that collection, and there were several videos that I did documenting some of the interesting instruments from that, and also the first part of the catalogue, which was in March. So what we have here is the second part of the catalogue, so this is due to finish on June the 6th, and I think bidding will open it up a little bit before that. There will also be some other items for sale on this sale in the 6th of June, more of their normal kind of specialist sale that they have, but I don't think that stuff will be added for a little while, so we'll do that in a separate video. I wanted to keep the Norman Rosenberg separately. So yes, in March I did a video about the collection part 1. Do check that out if you're interested. I'll see if I can put a little box thing or something up in the corner if that works. If not, just search for it on the channel. But this is part 2, and I think there's about 100 or so items in this sale. So there's some books and bows and stuff like that. So yeah, before we get into it, I'd just like to say if you do enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing or like or comment, because it really does help quite a lot and it'd be much appreciated. So yeah, the buyer's premium for this auction is 20% as per the last one. That's what you pay on top of the hammer price. This auction is based in the UK, so if you're outside of the UK, then you might want to consider import charges, kind of export, all of that, and CITES restrictions for anything that might have prohibited materials. So yeah, without further ado, I think let's just get on and see what we have. So first of all, I think we've got some books here. Peter Benedek, Violin Makers of Hungary. We won't get too deep into this, but we will look at every lot, because I think it's quite an important collection. Eric Blott, Luteria Italiana there. Good collection. Paul Childs, the Bow Makers of the Pacat family, and some other kind of books there on bows. Herbert Goodkind, Violin Iconography of Antonio Stradivari. Fridolin Hammer, German violin makers there. Some other books as well. Here's the Hill books on Stradivari and Guarneri, all very interesting. I've got the Stradivari book here at home. John Huber, Masterpieces of Italian Violin Making. Cesare Magrini, Augusto e Gaetano Palastri there. Another book there as well. Roger Millant on J.B. Viome, also another book there. Max Moller, The Violin Makers of the Low Countries. That'd be quite an interesting book to look at. David Rattray, Masterpieces of Italian Violin Making. Then we've got 4 Centuries of Violin Making. This is the Sotheby's book. 2 Sotheby's catalogues there. Right, now we're on to instruments. Lot 110, a violin after Guadagnini attributed to Gaetano Scarabotto. Okay, interesting. 35.1 length, about 4 to 6. Let's have a quick look here. Nice looking violin. I'm sure that this will probably sell for a fair bit over the estimate here. You can also ask for condition reports from Ingles and Hayday, or you can listen to a sound sample. We won't do that now, but you can do that in your own time. Right, a violin attributed to Giuseppe Guadagnini, Italy, 19th century. Length the back 35.3, 10 to 15,000. Let's have a quick look at this. Beautiful back on that. Really nice looking violin there. As with many of the things in this in the Rosenberg collection, really interesting looking. Curious looking scroll. I'm sure that this will also sell pretty well. I mean, the last Rosenberg collection, the part 1, was pretty crazy. It really sold massively well. So, but now we have a violin by Giovanni Battista Cerruti there, Cremona, beginning of the 19th century there. Certificate of J&A beer from 1984, 120 to 180,000 on that. So quite a significant instrument. Some nice pictures as well. A violin Circle of Matthew Hardy, 35.4, 3 to 5,000. Matthew Hardy, regarded Scottish maker. Nice looking violin. A violin ascribed to Felice Mori Costa, 19th century there. Sold a certificate of W.E. Hills from 1928, 6 to 8,000 there. It's again nice looking violin. Violin by Giovanni Garancino, Milan, 1704, 100 to 150,000 on that. Ex Wilhelm. Once again, the fine Milanese violin here. Very nice. A violin attributed to Antonio Mariani, 3 to 5,000 there, 36.2 on that. Slightly kind of wonky. I think much of the stuff ascribed to Mariani does tend to be a bit wonky, and some of the ones which also are certificated seem to be a bit of a wonky type thing. Violin Circle of Goffredo Cappa there, North Italy, early 18th century. The head later unlabelled, 30 to 50,000 on that. Violin by Lorenzo and Tommaso Carcassi, Florence, 1781, 40 to 60. A violin, South Germany, late 19th century. Scroll, probably by G.B. Cerruti. 3 to 5 though, really beautiful back on that. A violin after Guadagnini, probably by Enrico Marchetti, Turin circa 1910, 10 to 15 on that. Some really interesting things in this auction for certain. A violin Circle of Tommaso Balissieri, Mantua circa 1770, with a Balissieri label, 50 to 70. A 7/8 size violin by Jacob Raymond, London circa 1640 to 50. The head probably by Jacob Fent. Interesting, 2 to 4,000. This is an interesting violin. Jacob Raymond being a violin maker who obviously arrived from Füssen in Germany to London, but in the Bates collection in Oxford, there is the oldest known surviving English violin, which is by Jacob Raymond, so a very important maker. So interesting violin. I would assume that this will sell for a lot more than 2 to 4,000. In fact, I would hope it would, but you never know. what may happen, but that's interesting for those interested in history and of the of English violin making. In any case, a violin, probably Naples, circa 1900. Head by another hand, 8 to 12. Seven-eighths violin by Carlo Ferdinando Landolfi, Milan, circa 1760, 1780, 25 to 35,000. Another really nice violin. I really like the scroll on this one. I mean, there's some really beautiful stuff in this auction. A violin, a follower of Bernard Simon Fent II, England, late 19th century. Length of back 35.6, 4 to 6. Wow, that is a stunning back. This is really my kind of back here. Really, really beautiful. That's a very nice looking violin. I do like a bit of a kind of chaotic back, a lot of kind of maybe figure, but also maybe kind of like slab cut, kind of wavy grain. That really beautiful. 4 to 6. I'm sure that will sell way over that. It's a beautiful instrument. Violin, School of John Frederick Lott, England, late 19th century, 6 to 8. A violin by Giuseppe Rocca, Turin, circa 1840. 150 to 200,000. Very significant instrument. A lot of these 19th century Italian violins, or even 20th century, are very valuable these days. Violin by Giuseppe Guarneri, Filius Andrea, Cremona, circa 1700, unlabelled. Violin is illustrated in the Hills book, The Violin Makers of the Guarneri Family. Interesting. 200 to 300,000. An important violin by a member of the Guarneri family. It's a very nice instrument indeed. I'm sure that will do well. On to some bows. Gold mounted violin bow there. Germany, 20th century, 1000 to 2000. Gold mounted violin bow after Viome, 1200 to 1800 there. Silver mounted violin bow after Picat, 1200 to 1800. Silver and tortoiseshell mounted violin bow by W.E. Hill and Sons, 3 to 5. Silver and ivory mounted violin bow by W.E. Hill and Sons, 2 to 3. Silver and ivory mounted violin bow, W.E. Hill and Sons, 1800 to 2.5. An ebony mounted violin bow, probably by John Dodd, 2 to 3. That's quite a nice bow there. A golden tortoiseshell mounted violin bow. So tortoiseshell on that. So CITES issues, 700 to 1,000. A violin bow stick, 1,000 to 1,500. A silver mounted violin bow by James Dodd, 1,200 to 1,800. Silver mounted violin bow by Eugene Sartori, 8 to 12. It's got a certificate there by the Cabinet d'Archetier. Silver mounted violin bow by Joseph Alfred Lamy, 7 to 10 there. Another one with a certificate. Gold mounted violin bow by Francois Nicolas Vorin, 6 to 8. Another certificate on that one. Silver mounted violin bow for Viome by Francois Nicolas Vorin, 4 to 6. All the French bows for certificates, makes sense. An ivory mounted violin bow, Dodd School, England, early 19th century, 1200 to 1800. That's quite a cool, nice looking bow. There are definitely collectors of historical bows out there. A violin bow stick attributed to Francois Nicolas Vorin, 1000 to 2000. Ivory mounted violin bow, possibly by John Dodd, 1000 to 2000. Nickel mounted violin bow by Jean-Joseph Martin, 3 to 5. Silver mounted violin bow after VO, 1500 to 2500. Silver mounted violin bow by JTL there, 1500 to 2.5. An ivory mounted violin bow, 1500 to 2000. Violin bow stick there. 5 bows. Further images. Let's have a look. I often forget that there are the further images. Also on some of the other lots as well, there are probably further images, so do bear that in mind if you are looking. They might be hidden in the further images section. Silver and tortoiseshell mounted fleur-de-lis violin bow by W.E. Hills and Sons, 6 to 800 there. Silver mounted violin bow by Dominique Pacat, 40 to 60,000, significant bow there. Silver mounted violin bow by Dominique Pacat, 28 to 35,000, another significant bow there. Silver mounted violin bow by Nicolas Mayer, 8 to 12. Silver mounted violin bow attributed to Francois Javier Tort, 5 to 8. Right, so a viola now. A viola, England, 19th century, labelled Baroque Norman, 4 to 6. 40.8, that's a good size. Nice looking viola there. A viola, Italy, 19th or early 20th century, 7 to 10. Once again, interesting looking viola that. Viola by Pietro Giovanni Mantegazza, Milan, circa 1790, 120 to 180 on this. Silver mounted viola bow, Knopf family, 1000 to 1500. I do like these kind of Knopf style bows with these kind of fancy pearl inlays. Quite interesting. Silver mounted viola bow by Paul-Émile Michel, 2 to 3000 there. Silver mounted viola bow by Nicolas Mayer, 20 to 30. Silver mounted viola bow by W.E. Hills and Sons, 3 to 5. Silver mounted viola bow after Tubs by Charles Nicholas Bazin, 3 to 5. Silver mounted viola bow after Tubs, probably by Charles Nicholas Bazin, 2.5 to 3.5. Silver mounted violin bow Hill Workshop, 5 to 800. A steel self-reherring violin bow by Jean-Baptiste Villaume, 1000 to 1500. I think we saw some of these in the other auction. They're very curious things. Silver mounted violin bow, probably by Maurice Frère, 1000 to 2000. Silver mounted violin bow by James Tubbs, 3 to 5. Silver mounted violin bow after Tubbs, probably by Charles Nicholas Bazin, 2 to 3. Silver mounted violin bow Tubbs School, 1500 to 2.5. Silver mounted violin bow by Justin Albert Thomasin, 3 to 5. Violin bow stick there, 500 to 1000. Nickel mounted violin bow Knopf School, 1000 to 2000. Silver mounted violin bow for Hart and Sons, Hills School, 1000 to 2000. 3 violin bow sticks there, 1000 to 2000. Let's have a look at some of these pictures here. I'm sure there are people in the know. Let's have an idea of what these might be. An ivory mounted violin or viola bow there, 1200 to 1800. Silver mounted violin bow, Tort School, 3 to 5000, France, circa 1830. Interesting looking bow there. Silver mounted violin bow, Workshop of Francois Pacat, 2 to 3. Silver mounted violin bow there, 1500 to 2.5. silver mounted violin bow 2 to 3. An ivory mounted violin bow, Dodd family, 1000 to 1500. An ivory mounted violin bow, 1000 to 2000. Really curious head on that, really interesting. Interesting early 19th century bow. Silver mounted violin bow there, 1200 to 1800. Silver mounted violin bow by Jean-Joseph Martin, 4 to 6. Silver mounted violin bow attributed to Nicholas Mayer, 3 to 5. Silver mounted violin bow by Charles Nicholas Bazar, 3 to 5. Silver mounted violin bow by Charles Nicholas Bazar, 2 to 3. A violin after Guarneri del Gesù, circa 1900, labelled Raphael and Antonio Galliano, 2 to 3000 there. A nice looking violin. Violin by Benjamin Banks of Salisbury, circa 1780, 3.5 to 5. I do like the work of Benjamin Banks. Very interesting. The scrolls, this kind of high kind of head on some of these scrolls remind me of some of the German makers. Interesting violin there. Violin circle of Raffaele Trapani, Naples, early 19th century, 3 to 5. Curious scroll there. A violin attributed to Carlo Guadagnini, Italy, late 19th century, 6 to 8. A violin by Andrea Marti, Cremona, circa 1575. The head later unlabelled. Dendro says it's one of the oldest tree rings ever recorded for a violin, in any case, 1297. 40 to 60,000. Now, I have done a whole video on this instrument, really amazing. Previously undocumented, I believe. Really interesting. Some people have discussed as to why the estimate is so low on this. Obviously, Andrea Marti being considered the father of the modern family of violins, and also the kind of the beginning of the Cremonese school of violin making. I think it probably goes back to the condition report. It does look like it may have a soundpost crack in the back. Quite possibly there's something kind of going on around here, but I'm not 100% sure. But there's definitely a few repairs. But a really interesting and important violin, really. I think it's quite beautiful. 40 to 60, I'm sure it will go for way more than that, even if it does have a bad condition. A violin, probably Berlin, circa 1900, 2 to 3. And this is quite possibly the least interesting violin of this particular auction, I would think. A violin by Ferruccio Varagnolo, Venice, 1912. Pupil of Leandro Biziac, 12 to 18,000. Nice back on that, actually. Very nice. So, definitely quite a striking instrument. I'm sure that will also do well. Only a couple left, I think. A violin by Carlo Ferdinando Landolfi, Milan, 1754. 60 to 80,000. Really nice back. This is definitely my kind of back there, in the colour of the varnish. This kind of beautiful orangey varnish. Yeah, nice looking violin there. Nice Milanese violin. And a violin, South Germany or Austria, late 18th century. Really quite stunning back on that. Very kind of striking figure to the wood there. And a violin attributed to Domenico Montagnana, Venice, 18th century, 12 to 18,000 there. And a violin by Nicholas Lupo, Paris, circa 1795-1800, sold with a copy of a letter of authenticity from W.E. Hills and Sons, 50 to 80, one of the most important French makers of all time. Twin of this violin is featured in book on Nicholas Lupo, The Golden Age of French Violin Making. Really nice looking back on that. A little bit surprised about the valuation of this one as well. I would have thought that would have been a bit higher. But nice Lupo violin. A violin after Guarneri del Gesù, attributed to John Frederick Lott II, England, 19th century, 5 to 7. Again, nice looking violin there. John Lott I and II, very accomplished makers, very regarded. A violin attributed to Giovanni Battista Rogeri, the head probably by Joseph Galliano, 15 to 20,000. Nice back on that. Interesting kind of Amati F-holes on that. Very Amati looking instrument. Yeah, that's a really nice back on that. Nice looking instrument there. A violin by Santino Lavazza, Milan, circa 1715 or 20, 60 to 80,000. Interesting arrangement of the figure there. Another nice looking violin. Very nice. A violin, Circle of Claude Pierret, Paris, early 18th century, 3 to 5 on that. A violin by Bartolomeo Calvarola, Bergamo, 1765, Hill certificate there, 20 to 30,000. A violin, Circle of Michele Angelo Bergonzi, Cremona, mid to late 18th century there, 120 to 180,000. Look at the back on that. That's absolutely staggering piece of wood there. That is really, really interesting. That's really what kind of gets me on some of these violins. Just really how beautiful the back is, and that is something that will really attracts me to instruments if they're really nice, beautiful kind of wood. Slightly all over the place is kind of what I like a little bit, and that definitely appeals. And it makes sense why Ingles and Hayday have the first picture as the back, because it is really quite striking oftentimes. And the last lot here in this Rosenberg collection, a violin by Tommaso Balistieri, Mantua, circa 1760, labelled Petrus Guarnerius there, sold with a certificate of W.E. Hills and Sons, some other certificates as well. So 140 to 180 is the estimate, so I'd be curious to see how that does. Interesting example of a kind of earlier period Balistieri, very much kind of Petrus Guarneri, Peter of Mantua influence there. Yeah, an interesting violin. So, well, there we go. That is it. That has been the Rosenberg collection part 2. Some really, really interesting stuff. I think that the first one with the Strad and the Guarneri violin, the Andrea Guarneri violin, which was really, really beautiful, would argue that the first part was a little bit more interesting than the second, but there's still some really great stuff here, and hopefully I might get to see some of these in person. But yeah, really great auction, really interesting, definitely worth checking out. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching, I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time. Link in the description. Have fun, bye.